Hello, I'm Jose, and this is the Cinematic Dogma podcast. As every week, I'm joined by my wild friend, Blake.
Hey, Jose. I'm happy to be here. You might say this is where the wild things are.
Correct. Correct. Giving a bit away what we're going to be talking about this week.
Yes, we are going to watch a film, or we did watch a film called Where the Wild Things Are. 2009, right? Spike Jonze. He co-wrote the script with Dave Eggers. I really should be pulling up the IMDb page, but I think that's right. With an exceptional cast, it's mostly voice acting, but I had forgotten who was in it, and I was just listening like, that's Catherine O'Hara. That's Chris Cooper. Yep. That's, not Kiefer Sutherland. Forrest Whitaker. I don't know why I confused those two. It's the last names they have.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true when you mention like that, yeah. And I was the one that chose this movie. The reason why I pick it is because I only watched it once. I think that I really like Spike Jonze, and he only has 4 movies. I think.
Let me see if I can name them. Being John Malkovich, which I knew, Adaptation, Where the Wild Things Are, and I don't know what the 4th one is.
Her.
Well, that makes me a little bit sad.
I thought that you like Her.
I did, but when you put it next to Being John Malkovich and Adaptation, it's like.
Well, and that's the thing. What I didn't watch Where the Wild Things Are when it came out. I just felt it's like, hey, this is not going to have the magic that he created with Charles Kaufman.
So you went in with low expectations.
I didn't watch it at the beginning. It's like I actually, when I moved here to the States, probably on the first Black Friday, I actually bought pack of Where the Wild Things Are and the Never Ending Story Blu-rays.
So you brought your bad taste with you to America.
So the Never Ending Story is one of my favorite childhood books.
I'm joking. I've never seen it. So.
Okay. And it was one of the first. It was one of the first movies that I watched in the cinema too. Wow. I wouldn't say that it's a great movie, but the book is one of my favorite ones. So it was that's great. Where the Wild Things Are, I never watched it. It's a Spike Jonze, so this has been more of a justification for $10 for owning both of them. So I probably watched it in 2012, 2013.
Oh, so since we've known each other, probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, probably. And at that point, I just watched it and I felt like, it's whatever. It's not bad. It's okay, but I never thought too much about it after that, And the thing is, now it's coming back to the cinemas, so I was just curious about I would like to rewatch it because you have mentioned across all of our friendship that you really like the book, or that it was important for you as a kid.
It was. So I grew up here in America, and I felt like I was a wild thing. And my parents broke my family when I was a kid, so I think it just resonated.
The book or the movie?
The book. Oh, I'm just talking about the book.
Yeah,
because I was 30 when it came out.
Oh, gotcha. But I was curious. I was curious to see it again after watching so much stuff, after appreciating so much the first 2 movies by Spike Jonze, and I think that here is a good movie. There is nothing inherently wrong. I always felt a bit surprised that this is getting the recognition, this amount of recognition, compared with previous works that I feel like they are more representative of the late 90s, early 2000s artistic sensibility. When Her is a bit more clinical, I feel.
Yeah, I feel like he definitely went into a far more creative place for adaptation and Being John Malkovich than he did for Her. And I think Where the Wild Things Are is kind of his zenith. He's like, this is as far as I can get into the imagination of a child. You disagree? You made a face.
No, I think that's fine. I just think it's pretty different. I had the feeling that if you work with Charles Kaufman as the screenwriter, is that things probably take a turn to the wild, imaginative space. the thing is, like, when we had to actually see him as a director, like, independently, is like, it looks like Spike Jonze took this as a bit more of a personal process. As I had the Blu-ray, we were watching like some of the extras, and he was saying that Maurice, what is the name of
Sendak.
Maurice Sendak is like was approached like multiple times for adapting the book to the big screen, and until he didn't develop a friendship with Spike Jonze, he was not convinced that anyone could actually do justice to his work on the big screen.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I think that it was a bit more about like, hey, Spike Jonze really wanted to do this, and like the vision that he had, it actually resonated with the author vision of the book. So that's the reason why it happened, and why maybe it became a bit more of a, hey, before I was adapting like these crazy guy's ideas that it was Kaufman, and now it's more my vision of the world, is my imaginative process.
That's interesting. I didn't know any of this, but the story has changed pretty significantly in the movie. So it's interesting that Maurice Sendak was like, "Yeah, this is what I want for it." Cool.
Well, I mean, he actually said that this is his vision of the work, and it's like, I respect him, but it's like he injected a lot of his vision because the book is minimal,
Yeah.
But before we jump into that, do you want to summarize it?
Not really, but I will for the sake of the podcast. The film starts out filmed with a handheld camera, which I think was brilliant. Filming this young kid, Max, in the book, he's supposed to be about 6. In the film, I believe he's 9. Let's just talk about the film. Max is 9. He lives with his mother, played by Catherine Keener, and he has a sister, and clearly through not exposition, but just really excellent filmmaking, like I feel like the first 10, 15 minutes are just exceptional in terms of storytelling. We figure out that Max only has one sibling. He lives with his mother. His parents recently went through a divorce. His mother's starting to date again, and he feels a little bit, he feels a lot alone, and especially abandoned by his sister, who's a early teen girl who just wants to hang out with her friends. You're making a lot of faces. Do you not agree with my synopsis?
No. It's funny because you're saying about like there is a divorce between the parents. But don't say it 100%. Is it because for me it's like I was trying to decide: is like did they get divorced or did the father die?
So in my mind, and this is of course an interpretation, it's clearly a divorce. In fact, later in the film, we meet a bunch of characters in Max's imagination, and fights between his mother and father play out between these characters. So I guess you can read it anyway. That's true. That's my interpretation. But we do see Max acting out because his mother does start to bring home romantic interests. Well, she brings home one romantic interest, and it's Mark Ruffalo, which I loved.
It's like he's only like for 30 seconds on the screen, and like the first time that he appears, like, is that like a super young Mark Ruffalo?
But you can tell he's a really good actor because I didn't even recognize him, and he was all weird, and yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, and I love that actually. Is that he looks even younger when he was doing the Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. He's like, how come when that movie is like 5 years older than this one? How is this guy younger here? But no, the thing is like he was already a wild thing before meeting like the boyfriend and anything. He's like he was already,
he's
like,
acting
attacking
out.
the dog.
Yeah. He was wrestling with that dog. But yes, he is a wild thing. So his mother brings Mark Ruffalo home, and Max isn't really having any of it, and he kind of throws a little bit of a tantrum, and he fights with his mother, and then he just runs out of his house. He keeps runs into the woods. He starts a great rumpus, just destroying things, and then he decides to keep running. He finds a boat, sails off into the sea, and lands in a place where the wild things are. And there he meets these larger-than-life monsters or wild things that the artistry is incredible in this film, in my opinion. But then he just kind of inserts himself as the king of these wild things who are really wild, but have these big emotions that range from happiness to sadness. one of the first most devastating questions they ask him when deciding if he should be their king is if he can keep the sadness out, which is just, for a 6-year-old kid, good lord, it's heavy stuff. Yeah. They embrace him as a king, but they have all of these internal conflicts. They're all friends, but they've had, fights, and things are changing in a way that makes them all uncomfortable, and they want to stay the same. And they decide to build a fort, and Max promises as a king that this fort is going to keep all the people out that they don't. I mean, really, we're just in the imagination of this young boy being able to do whatever he wants. Yeah. He builds an expansive universe while watching all of these characters kind of go through emotional arcs of their own. And I think, honestly, we can probably stop there. There's no real point in seeing the plot through, the synopsis through to the ending. That's essentially the story. He works things out that's happening in real life in his imagination with these characters, which I think each character represents an emotion, and each character has these really enduring traits and some really, really terrifying traits, which I think, again, is indicative of emotions when you're a child or a maladjusted gay 40-year-old.
That's fair. Yeah, I think that's a good synopsis. And besides that, as is going to be in the cinemas again soon, is that we can just stop it there.
Great.
So, did you like it?
So, let me go back to 2009 when I saw this movie in the theater, and I went with a lot of high expectations because of being John Malkovich and adaptation. And I wanted more of the same. This is not exactly more of the same, which I remember being disappointed at and walking away from that first showing thinking it was okay. Yeah, it was fine. So I didn't know how I was going to feel this time watching it, and I had a greater appreciation for the artistry. I think the technology that they did for the special effects is just mind-blowing 15 years later. Like, mind-blowing. Really cool stuff. Yeah. The filming of the monsters, they're half CGI and half people in these oversized, like, 10-foot costumes. And I appreciated very much, maybe because I'm less of a child now, this kind of examination of what it's like to be a child and escaping into your huge imagination and things feeling too, like, I just feel like he got so many things right about childhood. But I also walked away from this screening thinking there are some really, really cool, beautiful things, but it's not exceptional. That's how I feel.
That's how you felt the first time, but did you still...
No, that's what I'm saying. After the second time, I walked away with a greater appreciation for how he handled childhood and a greater appreciation for how beautiful the film was. And it's certainly emotional, but it's not perfect, and it doesn't stand out as an exceptional film to me. I would say it's a solid, good film.
That's completely fair. And I had like a similar experience when I watched it the first time, 2012 or whatever. I was expecting something different. I was expecting like the elevated, crazy feeling that I had like with adaptation or being John Malkovich, as you were saying. And what I found is like, hey, I don't know the source material. I didn't even know the source material until 10 minutes before we started this recording, to be fair. So I knew that this was a beloved piece of work. But for me, it wasn't representative or anything. I didn't grow with it. So it felt a bit more about like, he's a kid living in his imagination. It's like well materialized. I think that when it was released, there were like a lot of high expectations because of how beloved the book was. And Spike Jonze coming from 2 big hits, And I think that people look down at it from the perspective that this is weird because it's that you don't capture like... We don't feel like you captured the essence that we took away from the original book. That is a 40-page child book that doesn't like look at the reader directly and says that it is about a kid like processing the emotions, because he's going through something turbulent in his life. It doesn't not say it either, but it's more about like, hey, an adult can actually get this meaning from it, but the book is targeted to kids. And most kids may not get the same. and this guy is looking more at the camera. Spike Jonze is doing like a 2-hour movie and just like turning into a bit more of a kid going through something terrible. Well, kid being a kid and just struggling with adjusting his emotions to what is happening, like processing like the emotions. And so it felt like a bit more in between like two walls about like, what is this for? You are not capturing like the nostalgic value of the book. You're not capturing like what I expect as an adult from you. So I think that that's the reason why it was not so beloved. For me, the first time I walk away with like, I don't know the original work. This is not being John Malkovich's adaptation, so it's a whatever. This time I like it much, much more. I feel like, hey, this is a bit like Inside Out, like the Pixar movie, like 10 years before the movie was done.
Comparison.
Yeah, there is a it's an interaction between you and your feelings, and it's like how you are like projecting these feelings into this creature and just like using them as a way of putting yourself in perspective. So
I agree. Everything you said I agree with.
Yeah, so is that this didn't feel as a kid's movie. It's cute to some extent, but I don't know if this would be like a movie that I would watch with a kid.
I have to say, when I started to play it and I watched it on HBO Max, it said, "Oh, this film was rated PG," and I was like, "What?" It's a little scary for PG. I mean, there's nothing offensive in it at all, but it feels it's not scary. Again, it's the emotions thing. Like, there's a real stuff that's worked through in this film, and it feels not for children.
And the thing is, if you look at Pixar, you know that they made a name for, hey, we can create movies that they are entertaining for all ages. Because if you're a kid, you're going to be like getting something, and if you're an adult, you're going to be like getting something different, a bit deeper, potentially. I think that this is a movie that tries to do like a similar thing. But for me, the tone of the movie, the first time that I watched it, this time maybe not that much, it was a bit more of a danger about like you are surrounded by these things that they could kill you at any whim. They are out of your control. And you are exposed to them with no defense. It almost made me feel like from the perspective of, hey, if I were a parent of one of these wild things, how can I control them? How can I actually like manage them when they are like going in a rampage?
But isn't that the emotional journey that he goes on? He realizes, yes, oh, these things aren't dangerous. I need to grow up and address issues. And then once you address them, they're not scary, but they sure feel scary.
Yeah. You develop like some kind of empathy, some kind of, hey, how do you channel these feelings? And he interiorizes that is like, this is me. This is basically what I've been like imposing on my family, like going through this without like looking at the camera so much, I've been more in a slightly subtler way. And I liked it much, much more this time. I don't know if it resonated to the point of, hey, this is exceptional cinema. But I like it. I think that it's a really good movie.
It's definitely unique, and I appreciated. So there's a character named KW in the film who's voiced by Lauren. Why can't I think of her name? She's voiced by Claire from 6 Feet Under. Is it Lauren Ambrose? Anyway, this wild thing is so clearly supposed to be his sister in the real world, and he gains this deeper understanding and deeper appreciation of his sister and what she's going through, and learns to empathize, and then he becomes particularly close to a wild thing. I can't remember his name. Was it Roy? Who was voiced by James Gandolfini, which unexpectedly make me sad. Carol, thank you.
Yeah.
And you see him kind of figure out these things between his parents, or at least that's how I read it. And it's just, there's a lot of emotional levels that I was just very impressed what he was able to cram in. And then you look at that achievement, and then what you just pointed out, that it doesn't really capture what's in the book. So what is this film exactly? There's just a lot to consider.
Yeah, it's his own thing.
Yeah.
And I think that has merit. Is like what we were saying a moment ago. Is like Maurice, like the original author, says like, okay, that's your vision. Is that you're using the elements that is on the book, but you're turning it into your own thing. And I think that it has like a lot of merit of, hey, I'm going to be like getting these 40 pages with 10 phrases total, more or less, and I turn it into these more fleshed out characters and emotion processing.
It's interesting to think. So you read the book 20 minutes ago now.
Yeah, I haven't had like 10 years for interiorizing it.
The book isn't explicit in what the story is about at all. There's more story in the film about his situation at home. But I think the magic of the book is that you, as a kid, or I, as a kid, was able to project whatever I was dealing with at the time into this character. And I think Spike Jonze, much like Noah Baumbach, when he sees a story, he's like, how can I tell the story of my parents' divorce through this? And so he put in all this stuff, which makes it very personal to him, different than the original story, but also valuable specifically because clearly this is a very like personal story for him.
But I also think that it can be also something that resonates with a very, very large amount of kids. That is if we say that this movie is not for 12 years old, if we say like this movie is actually for people like in adulthood or young adulthood, is that you can actually resonate a bit more with like, hey, this is the trauma that the kid is going through. And my parents are not divorced, but is that I could actually see that this feels like it's capturing in a bit more of a reasonable way, like what is the turmoil, the internal turmoil of those kids. He made it personal, true, but it also made it real. I think that this is more real than this kid. Yeah, than this kid and the whale.
Well, maybe not better. It's just a completely different thing, right?
Well, yes, but he used like the original elements of the book. He didn't disregard them. It's like they're all there.
Yeah.
And he actually added like a personal story on top of them, that it doesn't feel like, hey, this is Spike Jonze's life. It's more about like, hey, I'm going to be infusing my personal experience that we don't know if Spike Jonze is child of a divorce or not. But he actually turned it into a bit more of just injecting life, injecting like more layers to the content for just making it like more specific instead of the 40 pages of the book that it was more of, hey, this could be about anything is true. It's about like a kid being a wild kid, finding other wild things, and then he's like, maybe I had it like pretty good back home.
So all of this worked for you really well. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, for me this worked like pretty well. I just feel like the script is true. It's like it's not a Charles Kaufman script. I would have like seen like a version of this by Charles Kaufman, but I had the feeling that it would have gone like way weirder places and way less touch your heart moments. As we see here, there are a lot of very sad moments of awkwardness, like when you are a kid and you're like trying to process your feelings and you don't have the tools and you get frustrated, like moments like that I feel is, hey, this is pretty well crafted.
I don't disagree in the slightest. It's incredibly well crafted, and I think it hits so close to home that in moments it's uncomfortable. It's like, oh God, yeah, we've all been through what Max has been through, regardless of whether it's because of a divorce or feeling lonely or whatever. Like it really captures a specific, not nostalgia or well, maybe it is nostalgia and melancholia for childhood. That's incredibly bittersweet, I think, for most people, and he did that really well.
Yeah. So for me, it worked like pretty well. I had a blast watching it.
And also, it's so fucking beautiful. The images are so beautiful. Good Lord.
Yeah. I mean, like the monster design is that now that I was like checking the book, I was like, yeah, it's the same. And these designs are pretty outlandish of the monsters, is that they truly feel like out of a weird dream that you had as a kid.
Yeah.
And he portrayed them like perfectly, in the big screen, as you were saying, is like it's magnificent, like what he achieved 15 years ago.
I cannot believe this movie is 15 years old. I would not guess it was Like it could come out today, and we would be equally as impressed.
Yeah. One thing about as I watched it on Blu-ray, I checked like some of the extras about like how were the special effects truly made. And what he did is like all of the scenes with the monsters is that he recorded like in a set. Is that it was not like James Gandolfini like putting his voice over the movie. So they recorded first those scenes and then they acted them with the actors that they were wearing the suits. And what they were doing is that they were in a set, all of the actors, so James Gandolfini and the rest, like just performing the lines without the kid. It's like just a placeholder for the kid. And then the actors that they were like in the suits, like performing with Max, is that they actually were interpreting in real. They memorized like exactly the intonations and everything, and they trying to adapt their acting to the original lines that they did instead of the other way around.
So like drunk history without drunk.
Drunk history without drunk. I don't know what is.
You don't know drunk history? Okay, move on.
Okay.
But no, it's really cool, and the I call them puppets for lack of a better word. They're not puppets, but they're they're so expressive and emotional and believable and sweet. Why do you own the Blu-ray?
Well, because it was a 2-pack with a never-ending story.
Oh, that's what you bought, like 15 years ago or 10 years ago, whatever.
That there is no reason for connecting these two, except that they are both of them based on very famous childhood books.
Yeah.
But the never-ending story, a 400-page book, has absolutely... Well, no, it has a bit more about like just processing isolation or processing like bad state for a kid. That both of them, they actually are refugees into their imagination world.
So, knowing me as well as you do, and my movie tastes, would you recommend I watch The Never-Ending Story? Outside of David Bowie's Bulge, like that.
That's Labyrinth.
I haven't seen either of those movies.
I know, clearly you haven't.
Never-Ending Story is the dragon, right? The dragon that flies.
Correct.
Okay.
I would recommend to read the book. For a while, I had like this thing of every 5 to 7 years, I would reread the book.
Oh, wow.
Because of how much I like it.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's a nice book. I really like it. It had like this stupid thing of using 2 inks for just describing if it was like in the fantasy world, because it's about a kid reading a book that is called The Never-Ending Story. So when he's reading the book, is that you have like a different ink, and then he gets transported into the book.
All right. Well, maybe I'll read it.
And it's like a similar thing of processing like trauma from the real world. So, but it goes like much more into detail into why. And the thing with the movie is that the movie finishes like at the end of the first act of the book. So I always felt it's like cool, nice, great.
They'll probably just reboot it now. Next year, The Never-Ending Story Part 2, 3, 4, and 5, directed by Denis Villeneuve.
They already did it. They already did like
did?
sequels. They did like sequels to that, but it's not the same. I think that is, well, if you want to read the book, it's like it's fine. If you want to watch the movie, I think that is like whatever. Is they have like one of the saddest scenes ever that it was turned into a meme into a
No,
video.
is it the horse? No, I'm not. Nope.
And in the book, it fucking hurts.
I'm not doing it. I'm not. I don't. No.
It's like the kind of stuff that it just created a generation of trauma.
Yeah. Well, so, I'm glad you shared that with me.
Yeah. So now you know to avoid it.
Yep. At least it's not a dog, but I still like horses.
But the thing is that it makes sense in the context of the book, to be honest. So it's up to you. I think that it's like a great book for kids, young adults, and even adults that they feel like, hey, I want something that captures like the imaginative trip of a kid.
And that is how you would describe The Never-Ending Story and Where the Wild Things Are.
Yes, but I mean, it's true. I'm actually using this imaginative world as a way of processing like what is happening to you in real life.
Well, I may or may not watch it, but it sounds like I might like it.
Yeah, yeah, and once again, is I think that the book is way, way, way far superior, you know. But it's up to you. It's like it's a bit more of I have like a very special place in my heart for the book.
Probably in the same way that I have that special place in my heart for Where the Wild Things Are.
Yeah. Uh, but yeah, in any case, we're not talking about the never-ending story. For me, is that where the wild things are. It was underrated for the wrong reasons because of people were like very appreciative about the original work and they wanted to see only the original work. They wanted to see like, they didn't want to see the Spike Jonze vision and personal experience through it.
And that is my recollection in 2009, is that people were definitely paying attention that the film came out, but both the box office numbers and the reviews were a little on the fence. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think so. And even like if you check the scores online, they're surprisingly low. It's like a 60 something all around.
Yeah, I'm looking at Rotten Tomatoes right now, 73, but a 57% from the audience, which that tracks.
Yeah, but it's more. I think that people they wanted this to be their vision of what the book was. So it's that you want like the nostalgic value is actually weighting it down.
Yep, when this is a different thing that's just as good or better, it's just not meeting the expectations people went in on.
Yeah, and the thing is that the Neverending Story is a 400-page book, so there is like way much more material that you could adapt in a.
But at least, but you just said the movie's only about the first chapter, so
and
really the
Neverending
Neverending Story is a one-chapter book.
Yeah, I think that most of the kids they actually gave up before finishing the book, and they actually only carry like the trauma of the horse and some other stuff.
They all stop after the horse. They're like, nope,
and they
no
are
more.
still like, nope. I'm telling you, it's like if this is only the first act, I don't want to see where it goes, and it goes places. Let's just say.
All right.
So, but it can be like a bit of an easier if you don't know the original work. Is that you actually take like this vision with a bit more of an open mind. But if you love the original work, is that you're going to be more critical about like, hey, this is not what I took away from it. So the Neverending Story was a huge phenomenon, at least in Spain. It's like I have like a lot of friends that they actually read it. It's like that author is Michael Ende, I think that is the name. He's German, and it's like all of his books were like pretty big hits in Spain. I remember like my sister had like all of them, and I read like most of them also when I was little. So it was more of this is a bit more of it's beloved here, but maybe it wasn't as big in the States, and also it's a 400-page book for kids.
Now there is a question that I came up with when I was watching Where the Wild Things Are the second time is I fully felt like, okay, this is capturing some of the pain and beauty of childhood. How much do I want to revisit that as an adult? You'll have to take that into account when you're deciding whether to watch this, because the emotions are authentic, but that doesn't mean it's a fun, nice thing to experience. And unlike, and I say this without joking, there's not the huge emotional payoff like the Bellatar film we always joke about. This is just, hey, there's going to be some suffering, and then the movie's going to end with the knowledge that the suffering will continue, but you have better tools.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically it will be okay realization.
Yep.
Eventually, but it's that you at least understand that what you're going through is a phase. It's not about the wall that you have to destroy it around you for just shape it to what you want it to be. It's more about like a...
To your point earlier, what kids' movie should end with, well, things will probably be okay.
I agree. It's a bit more of as an adult, I guess. It's like, okay, yeah, that's fine. Because it was. We all can remember, like, probably like a phase in our lives that is, hey, we were petite assholes.
Everyone's read the book, so I'm going to do a tiny spoiler here. At the end of the film, Max returns to his family. And this is kind of where we experience this emotion. Like, well, things will probably be okay. I kid you not. I was like, this is how I feel every day walking home from work. Things will probably be okay.
So that feeling doesn't go away.
No, and it was a little too real. Max was holding up a mirror to my life, and I didn't like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Should we go over the questions?
Yes.
Okay, so going over the questions. The first question: would you watch Where the Wild Things Are again?
Yeah, I'm actually committing to it because I'm fascinated by my experience 15 years ago. This experience, there's more here, and I want to see what more there is for me.
There is a line that I love about the never-ending story that he actually, and I probably mentioned this to you like other times in other contests, is that the only reason why I like rewatching or rereading something is because I know that the work hasn't changed, but I have, and what I'm going to be like taking away is going to be different, especially when something that you read or you consumed when you were a child. And that's the reason why I keep rereading the never-ending story, because I know that every time I'm a different person like reading it, but the work is the same. And I feel like that's a bit of a similar case with this movie too. That is that I will rewatch it again because what I took this time, it was different than what I took like 10 years ago. And older at this point is like I look at things with a different perspective. And I feel like this is the type of movie that it tries to do that around childhood too.
That's the same reason that I make myself watch Requiem for a Dream about every 3 years to see how it reflects how I changed as a person.
And you're still a masochist.
How am I going to feel about Jennifer Connelly taking a double dildo up her ass this year?
Okay, let's move on. Could you recommend Where the Wild Things Are?
Yeah. I mean, I would carefully consider why and to whom, but yes, I would.
Yeah, I think that I would recommend it to people around our ages. I think that is like a pretty easy, I think that my generation, that is different than yours, is that we tend to look like a bit of like to childhood, in a way that is like, okay, it's nostalgic, it's like pretty far away, but we also remember our childhood being like really, really different from what our adulthood is. So,
Yep.
I mean, I think that is that anyone around my age is like, if they watch this, they're going to be like just having, I don't know, like somewhat of a similar experience and feeling like rewarded to some extent.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't recommend it to my mom, for instance, who would just say it's so sad. And my
Yeah.
niece, who's 14, I don't think would get it, but say like 25 to 45.
Yeah.
That's probably the special spot.
No. Would you remember Where the Wild Things Are? The movie, not the book.
Yes. I remembered a good amount of this in 15 years.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that there were like some scenes that I have forgotten, like the small model, small, like pretty large model that Carol did.
I liked that scene very much, and I was like, oh, this is Spike Jonze' moment to be the cute creative.
I was thinking that this looks straight from a Michelle Gondry video clip. But thank you.
I had Wes Anderson. I was like, this is Wes Anderson.
Oh.
But yeah,
No,
it's the same.
I was thinking about Hyper Ballad or the Bachelorette, like the video clips.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was thinking, this is Michelle Gondry. Let's be honest. This is Spike Jonze looking at Michelle Gondry and saying that looks cool. I think that I can just do it here too.
He's like, do we have the budget? Perfect. I'm going to use it on this.
But at the same time, it's like super sweet about like how it depicts like the idea of, hey, this is how I want the future to be, and realizing that it's like, this is a bit out of your hands and you have to deal with it, So yeah, there are going to be like some scenes that I will forget, but the overall kind of feeling of the kid embracing like these realities of the world, I think that is going to remain with me. Is there anything artistic about it?
Yeah, a lot of things. I think the voice acting, which rarely stands out to me, I was like, these are actors at the top of their game. The film was beautiful. Some of the shots, I was like, I would print this out and put it on my wall.
Yeah.
The The music is the only thing that felt dated to me. It's that like 2010s like Arcade Fire craze, which I just
It reminded me a bit of. It reminded me a bit of The Beach, of that generation of cinema. That is like you have to use a lot of what is the cool music for the time. I was telling my boyfriend, he's like, "Hey, this almost feels like indie music, your childhood, the movie."
yeah. That's the only thing that stood out to me is like, this could have been done a little bit better. But to answer your question, there's a lot artistic about this.
Yeah, I think that visually is super striking. I think that the script work that he did, maybe it's not perfect, but it's like just pulling out of their asses like something like this from those 40 pages is good, because it doesn't feel like any kind of crazy filler or anything. It's like these are like 2 hours that you were able to feel with emotions in a pretty good way, that you feel pity for the monsters, that you feel scared about the monsters, that you hate the kid, you love the kid. It's a roller coaster of emotions that is like what that time in childhood is, and just being able to put it on the screen in this way, I feel like it's pretty good. It's pretty artistic.
Yep.
How he uses the medium. Actually, like pretty well connected to this. Is it a timeless piece?
Yes, completely.
Yeah. So it isn't, because you mentioned how the thing that you didn't like was the soundtrack. Does that ground it too much?
No, and there's only like 1 or 2 songs that I was like, ooh, this is just so stylish for 2009 and doesn't quite work. But I can look past 1 or 2 songs that aren't perfect because the rest of it will always seem like childhood to me. Always. It doesn't matter if it's 2010 or 2091. I'm just throwing out random years.
Yeah. No, what I was thinking is that this may be a bit of a problem with some directors, that they come from the music video age. So
I didn't think about that. Yeah, you're right.
Spike Jonze or Gondry, or even how do you say, who's the director of The Beach? Is Fincher?
Danny Boyle.
Oh, Danny Boyle. And Danny Boyle also has like that kind of music video feel to it. And in The Beach, for example, it felt like a bit more of hey, I had this song. I had to make a video clip of this song with my movie. Here, it felt like some of the scenes drag a tiny bit. That is like, oh, this is almost like a video clip, like the rumpus or like the fight that they have, like the war that they have. That is like, okay, you're dragging it a bit, and it almost feels like you want to put as a centerpiece the song. That's the only thing that I feel is, okay, this is a bit aged by nowadays standard, is that you will have like a piece created for this instead of trying to use like whatever song you like at that time.
Yep. But really, I want to be clear, it's like a minor complaint. It really is. Yeah. For me, it's a minor complaint.
Yeah, for me, it's also a minor complaint, but I also thought about it like, okay, if there is a remake of this, this is the first thing that goes away. But it doesn't make it like timeless, because at the end of the, it's true that the crafting may be a bit timely, or a bit more of the problem, not the problem, but a bit more of it comes with the territory.
Stylish in like a trendy at the time way, yeah.
Yeah, there is this extra feature on the Blu-ray where they spend like 2 hours. Do you remember like that scene that Max is like running on the street, like back home, and we see like a dog like barking at him, and I start like just running and barking the dog, and Max is like wow, 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 like doing the same noise. So they spent like 2 hours trying to record that dog barking at the same time that it was running.
Oh.
They had to even replace the dog. It's super sad. It's like, if you can find it. But the one part that is hilarious is like, it gets a point that Spike Jonze is screaming at the dog for, it's like, no, you have to bark. And then what he does is that he gets a skateboard and he's like just skating across the street, trying to trigger that behavior from the dog. We're talking about like the director of the movie got a skateboard for trying to make it. And he was like, oh, you're a cool kid. You're a cool kid in the body of an adult. And he put like so many things in perspective that is like, yes, you made a timeless thing. But I can also see like your cool late 90s, early 2000s, never grow up California vibe to tease.
Agreed, and that is a minor complaint of me, but you could probably say this about Jules and Jim in the 50s, right? Where it's like, oh, this is hyper trendy in the moment, but it did transcend the trendiness of
Sure.
no? I don't know. We'll see. Let's let time tell.
Yeah. But the thing is that you and I, we can say that because we lived through that time. And we feel like, hey, this is a cool kind of thing. But we grew with that. That's the part when you were talking about, like, hey, I can show this to a 25-year-old. Is that, true, let's wait 10 more years. And let's just show it to a 25-year-old at that time that it didn't grow up with that aesthetic or sensibility, and just think, is this truly cool, or is this truly like a bit of the expression of the time? Is people are going to be like looking at this and just say, okay, this is not the Lost Boys, but there are like some artistic direction and choices here that he actually like drags it a bit down.
It's a fair question. It's true.
Yeah. But in any case, for me, like what is like the topic of growing up as a kid, like dealing with your emotions, is timeless and is what is at the core of it. Then there are like some artistic choices that, whatever. Would you turn this into a TV show?
No. I feel like the emotional weight of this film would not be served well in an episodic format. This is just a journey you need to go on with Max in one single go.
Yeah, and I think that already extending it from the 40 pages to a 2-hour movie is like he already infused a lot of life into it. I honestly don't know how you can push it any further.
No, I wouldn't want to see it.
Yeah, and actually, could this have been a short?
It could have absolutely been shorter than its full run length, but this could not have been under an hour, I don't think.
I'm going to go with yes. I'm going to go with yes. I think that it would have been different, but the same way that what we see here is like you get these 40 pages and you turn it into these 2 hours, like giving all of this flesh out. I had the feeling that you have gotten like different elements and different pieces, and just doing a 30-minute short with this.
I disagree, but I respect you as my friend.
Okay, so you said that no, this couldn't have been a short. Okay, that's fine. You're wrong, but that's fine. Do you think that the Where the Wild Things Are could have been better?
Literally the only thing. Well, no, they could have cut down on some of the scenes, like you mentioned. They just stayed a little bit too long because he's fascinated with what he's putting on the screen, and he should be. But yes, there could have been tighter editing and better songs. Or different, it was not better, just different music.
I agree with you. How I would verbalize it is that this could have been less of a video clip.
Yeah.
At some points, but it's still good. It's still a good movie. I don't think that this breaks it, but I think that you will have gotten the same movie, because sometimes we actually say like this movie is not perfect. But I'm afraid that if I change something, it could turn into a different movie. I think that this movie could have remained being the same if you had done these changes. And it would have been, at least for me, a better movie.
Okay. You're wrong, but it's fine.
That's fine. I'm fine. I'm fine with you disagreeing and just being completely wrong about it. But that's your take. All right. Should we score this?
Let's do it. This was your pick, so I suppose I score first. I've actually had my score picked out since the beginning of recording, and it did not change. I'm going to go with a 7.5.
Okay, my score is a 7.75.
Ooh, pulling out the quarter point.
Yeah, I was going to say like an 8, but I had to say that all of this conversation that we had at the end, we brought it down.
Oh no, we should have stopped at 30 minutes.
But no, this is still like a super interesting, like if anyone is wondering if when you listen to this it's still on the cinema, and if not, it's in Max, whatever, I think that this is a movie worth a rewatch. I think that the time has treated it well, and the original reception was a bit too unkind to it.
And I think, regardless of any film being perfect or not, when there's this much to discuss about it, then it's a success in my book. And there's a lot to unpack here, and that's why I said I will watch it again to find whatever more I can unpack.
More layers.
Yep.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
this is a great. It's not great. This is a good film. It's a very good film.
Almost great.
Almost great.
Okay. All right. Well, to everyone out there, thank you so much for listening to us.
And until next time.